What's up, everybody? Welcome to another edition of Hot Stocks, and finally making time in his busy schedule to come on the show, Cameron Paul. Cameron, my man, thanks for taking time out of your busy day to come chit-chat.
Well, thanks for having me.
Cameron, let's just dive right in here and give a brief how you got started and what you race.
Well, I race micro sprints, anything with a 600 motor as of right now. And my dad raced modifieds through the 80s, 90s. My mom raced and, just kind of fell into the rut, I guess you should call it.
So for those that don't know, you say modifieds and stuff like that around here. We're thinking like full body cars. You're from the West Coast.
Yep.
Is that still the way it is out there?
My dad races still. He just actually bought a new car and he's been racing. I think hopefully next year we're going to put together something for me. But, just my dad raced that and a lot of connections through there. We had a friend that raced micros that was involved with Pace chassis. And so through all that, I kind of found myself into building a car. And
so how many years have you been racing?
I want to say the end of 2018 was my first race, October of 2018.
And so you're how old?
22.
So that would have made you 17-ish?
I was 18.
18?
Yeah.
So you're kind of like a late bloomer.
Yeah.
You're not you didn't roll through the ranks of junior sprints and restrictors and all that stuff, or cage carts and all that good stuff. You come out swinging on full on outlaw and all that good stuff. So your home track back in California, what was your home track?
The first track I ever raced at was Plaza Park, Visalia. We're about 30 minutes into the mountains of there, and we have a little more. So Visalia a little more, but there's only 4 tracks. So
right. So there's Plaza Park, there's Lemoore, Delta, and what's the fourth one?
It's Delta, Dixon are the 2 northern tracks.
Okay.
Yeah.
So in 4 years, I want to say, became a pretty talented driver. I mean, I guess it must be in your genes. Your dad must be like the bee's knees back in the West.
Yeah, back in the later years, he was the kind of guy that showed up in an open trailer and he won quite a bit of shows. I honestly think it has to come just to the genes and upbringing, I would say, of just kind of not taking no for an answer.
Right on. So, I mean, you've been out, dadgum, man. This is kind of blowing my mind. I mean, you've been racing for roughly 4 years, and I feel like you've been in Tulsa, in Oklahoma, racing for 3 years, but 2 years. 2 years?
Yeah, my first time coming out was actually 2 years ago. I'm just getting all the memories popping up on my social media, but I ran my first year in California and wasn't very successful. And then the second year we came out guns blazing, and then that was, I think, when COVID hit. So we ran the first 4 shows of the season or something, and then COVID hit. So we were shut down. And at the time, I was able to move out here and run some shows. I had enough money to saved up. So I came out here and was able to run, I think, 3 or 4 months pretty steadily out here. And that was my second year of ever being in a car. I mean, that was my first year in an actual competitive car, I felt like.
So, hold on. Let's think about this here. So you raced for a year, and you suck.
Yeah.
Just point blank.
Terrible.
I mean, let's be honest.
It was terrible.
So the second year you start running, and things get shut down.
Right.
So what made you decide, oh, hey, I've got some money saved up. I can go live on the road for a couple of months. What made you come to Oklahoma of all places?
Honestly, I was on a Discord with everyone playing iRacing one night, and we were talking about what potential shows could be raced, and I saw a Now 600, I want to say it was Creek County popped up.
Yeah.
And then they had something going on in Arkansas the following weekend. I don't know what track it was. I never made it to that. But I basically was like, you know what? I'm going to bounce out there and go hit that show and then see how long I can make it out there. And remember, I was on iRacing that night, and I was, just playing, and I was talking through all the kids in the stream. And actually Riker Pace was like, hey, we live in Owasso. If you want to come park at our place or stay at our place, you're more than welcome to. And that's kind of where I showed up here and ran that Creek County show, and they kind of brought me with open arms, and then I spent
absolutely
3
wild.
months here.
That's, I mean, here's this. It seems to me to become a recurring deal, video games, iRacing.
Right.
What was the one before that?
X Factor.
Yeah, R Factor,
Factor,
whatever. X Factor is a TV
It's a TV show, isn't it?
Yeah.
Joe
So R
Rogan.
Factor, like everybody, like kind of meets on there,
Yeah.
through that, right? Through that form of audience engagement or whatever. And then all of a sudden, you're coming to Oklahoma, you're staying with the Paces, and like, man, I remember the first time you were here, you were actually pretty decent. Like,
Yeah.
people just don't roll in here and they're decent.
Right.
You know? So tell me what that experience was like for you coming from the West Coast to here in the Midwest, where micro racing is like very, very popular and very, very well off. And you have some success. You run some shows. You run pretty good. Just tell me like what that does for you in general.
Honestly, the first couple weeks I spent out here, I definitely struggled a little bit, and it was very humbling because I came from California where, you know, I really thought that was the Mecca and where the talent really lied was in California, because we only have 10, 12 cars in a field, but, you know, sometimes you'll see guys like TJ and them running 8th or 9th, and it's just, that's how stacked the field is. I mean, I remember there's been times where we've been qualifying and it's like there's a 12-1 is quick time and 12-3 is dead last. So, you know, so when I came out here, the first couple weeks was definitely humbling, and I had to really, you know, kind of strap my boots up and get to work, because, you know, it was definitely tough. And I think that when I did transition back to California after that, I definitely was able to put together way better finishes, just because of I think here it's tough racing. It's, you know, it's not simple here.
So you race 3 or 4 months, you go back home, and then all of a sudden you pop up again. Like I watch social media pretty well. Like,
right.
And I didn't even see any like hint or inkling of you even coming back. And then one night I'm setting up cameras and you're like, hey, when are we going to do Hoss Talks? And I'm like, oh, great. You're like, who is this? And I turn around and I'm like, dude, what are you doing here? And you're like, I came to race. Like, what brought you back?
Honestly, I was in California, and just the way everything's going financially in the country and kind of where everything lies, to drive to Stockton, where I race usually, which is the premier track in California, it was costing me $400 or $500, and just to do like a weekly 1-day show. And I started thinking, you know, I'm better off leaving my equipment here, coming and racing with the cream of the crop in the industry, and go to some big shows. Like, for instance, last week we're at TMS at Texas Motor Speedway, and Gulf Coast the week prior, and I can put together 3 or 4 weeks of really hard racing for, you know, a couple grand compared to going to Stockton for 3 weekly shows.
Right. So you're in the game now to like hit up some big races. You've made a lot of great contacts, but you've also put a lot of work in giving people opportunities in the same sense, right? Like you've helped people give back as they've given to you. Like, you're repping our boys Velox right now. You know, they stepped up and said, hey, throw your car in the trailer, let's go race. And that just goes to show that the racing community around here isn't just, you know, stuck up or, you know, one-sided. There's a lot of people that are willing to help. But you've also helped Jaden, you've helped out Jason and the team with Velox. Talk to me about what that was like, the whole Gulf Coast experience and going down there and racing.
Yeah, you know, that was, you know, honestly, I can't thank them enough. I don't know anyone else that's been so giving, and they really don't ask for anything of me other than just a good attitude. But it actually started off in here. We were all hanging out in Turn 5, and we were talking about Southern Illinois, and I was supposed to go with Scott Ruschenberg and the JPU team, but they decided they didn't want to go. So I was a little stressed because I came out here to race that show, and I had no ride there. So I overheard Tommy saying, hey, come with us. And I was like, okay. And I know Jason for a while now, and they were like, yeah, come with us. So I ended up going up there to Southern Illinois, and we had a great time. And we didn't have the finish as we wanted, because obviously it was like my second show back in about 9 months. But we went up there, had a good time, and then from then I've, you know, been in the loop with them, and wherever they go, they say you're more than welcome to come hang out. And so it's been a great, you know, it's been a great connection for sure. I mean, tonight I get to drive the Outlaw car for them, and I get to leave my cars in their shop and drive their car tonight. So
very cool.
It's pretty exciting.
So comparing tracks, right? Because now you're getting to see some different tracks, and you're getting to go to a couple of different places. How did Gulf Coast, because I've heard a lot of good things about the racetrack and the racing surface and just the overall environment, but how did that compare to like some of the other tracks that you've been able to compete at?
You know, Gulf Coast, when we first showed up, they had the practice day and it rained out and it was super hooked up, but it stayed smooth. It's banked, but it doesn't look banked. And the configurations just looks, from the outside, it looks different from when you're actually on the track. And so I didn't really get any practice in because I was like, well, I can't really shake down a car on a slimy racetrack. It doesn't do me no good. So so going out that Friday night when I got on the track, I remember I made my hot lap session, and I had a pretty good session. I came in and I told everyone, I said, dude, this is a spitting image of what we had back home at Lemoore back to before they reconfigured it. And so it reminded me of Lemoore, but with a curb of Port City. But like it was definitely a curveball, but it was so fun because I think everyone that was there that was up front hasn't really been there.
Right.
So it made it more of like a driver's track, I should say.
Right on, right on. Outside of racing, you do some pretty cool stuff.
Yeah.
Let's talk about some of the little left swing, right swing, uppercut, knee punch, whatever. What got you into the whole? Is it MMA? Is it what is it like?
Yeah, so I've been doing jiu-jitsu MMA for, I want to say, almost my whole life. I played football and baseball in high school and elementary school and whatnot, but there's actually a church, and it's a funny story. Everyone laughs when I say this, but there's a church 3 houses down from me, and Brandon Cohey, Aaron Cohey are the two pastors there, and Brandon's actually one of the coaches and a fighter, and they've been doing it forever. And I remember just going to church, and they'd say, hey, we train Thursdays and Tuesdays at 6, come in and roll. And I remember I was 10, 12 years old, just rolling with adults. And obviously my dad and I, we like to watch fighting. It's like one of our only things we bonded, other than arguing. But we like to watch the fighting stuff. So it's been definitely a passion of mine. And then with the jiu-jitsu and fighting and continue to do it and losing all kinds of weight, it gave me the confidence to step in. I took a couple grappling matches. I actually grappled for the 185 California title. Didn't win, unfortunately. But yeah, so I think
It still takes some guts to do that. Like,
right.
What kind of adrenaline rush is that versus throwing a car as hard as you can into turn one?
Honestly, I used to think that with the racing deal, it was going to make me like more like, they're like, oh, adrenaline dump, you're going to have that when you fight. And I was like, I don't think I will. I think with the racing, I'm pretty, because I get in a race car and, honestly, I'll be singing, you'll be singing to us and I'll be singing with you and over the receiver. And it's honest, another day in the office, but stepping in the cage and fighting another human being or in front of thousands of people is definitely, it's second to none. It's a great feeling, but it's the scariest feeling because obviously, like my last match, my dad was, I could see him and we were basically chatting back and forth before my match, and I was like, I got this guy. And with being in a stage like that, all the lights are on you. It's definitely a surreal moment, and it's fun. I think by next March I should be fighting, I think, an actual MMA fight. It'll be an amateur fight, but I've done a lot of jiu-jitsu stuff, but I haven't quite fought yet just because I'm the kind of person, if I go into something, I want to be the best or at least be
prepared,
yeah.
Be ready to go after it, man. Absolutely. That's just nuts. Like, you watch that stuff on TV and you're like, man, dude, that's just wicked. Whenever it comes to racing, are you the guy, like your driving style, I feel like is it just depends on the day to me, like watching you, right? Like, do you consider yourself like sometimes an over-aggressive driver, or do you feel like you're more passive and relaxed in the race car?
If I can describe myself in a couple words, I would say I'm very, very sporadic. I think I make a lot of, and this is one of my biggest issues with racing, is I make a lot of decisions that are very on the fly, and I think it's continued to get better as time goes on. Obviously, I have like Sean Smith back home and Jared Huckleberry that usually coach me up, and they've helped me a ton. But I try to keep things under control, considering I have to finance the whole deal.
Right.
But I find myself like last weekend at Texas Motor, man. I don't think I ever threw any caution to anything. I just kind of went for it.
Just go for it.
Right.
The ultimate goal, like, I mean, you're 22. What's like the ultimate goal here? Do you have like that ultimate goal in racing? Is it in MMA? Is it in traveling? Is it just living life? Like, what's the ultimate goal here for you?
You know, but coming up on 23, at some point I got to figure out kind of where I'm going to set my roots in. I think me and Tommy Clay have been talking about me coming out here full time and working with them. You know, I've also talked to my dad about taking over the construction company back home. And you know, at this point, I got a couple more years left of being a kid, I should say. And like,
Yeah.
I mean, obviously I can take care of myself, but at some point I got to, you know, worry about buying a house and being more responsible.
Right. Being a grown up.
Being a grown up, you know, and actually I
It
think,
sucks.
yeah, Tammy Clay, we were sitting there, me and Jaden were leaving the shop, and she actually just texted me earlier, and she was like, must be nice to be able to be a kid and just go have fun. And I was, and she thought I was upset. And I said, no, trust me, everyone tells me that. But, you know, I think if I can make it in the career of racing and I can continue to grow my passion and to stay financially ahead, obviously I like to be able to go to the bar on a Saturday night.
Yeah.
So if I can live comfortably, I'd love to stay in racing. But I think it's whatever's going to be most beneficial for me in my life. Obviously, racing for me has always been a hobby, and I've tried not to keep it too much of a job because it takes the fun out of it.
Right. On those long road trips, I mean, California and Oklahoma is quite the haul, right? Like,
Right, it's not
what's
fun.
what's the playlist look like for Cameron Paul
Oh man,
rolling in the pickup?
you know, my playlist is about as diverse as anyone's gets, you know. But lately, if we're gonna go off of like my favorite music artist, I've definitely gotten into the Zach Bryan and, you know, Co Wetzel, Tyler Childers. The Oklahoma
Yeah.
country music has really kind of
I can appreciate that.
has been a big, I guess, vibe would be the way to put
What
it.
the walkout song for Cameron Paul? What would the walkout song be like?
I think the last walkout song I went out to when I did that grappling match was actually "Warm Up" by NF.
Really?
Yeah, one of my favorite lines is, you know, you got a lot of money, but that money can't buy you talent.
Ooh,
It's one of my favorite parts.
I like it.
So, you know, it's kind of cool because I feel like in fighting it takes away everything.
It's the same, right?
Yeah.
Like, yeah. You kind of get equal there. Whenever you think about like the snack list, like I say playlist, you think snack list. I'm a big snacker. Like I enjoy snacks.
Yeah.
For you, like you drink lots of water. I mean, you're amateur MMA fighter or whatever, but you gotta like snacks, right?
Oh, I
like,
love
what's the
snacks.
go-to snack?
You know, if you would have asked me this 2 months ago when I was cutting weight and I was, you know, eating super healthy and I was trying to stay super fit, I'd have been like carrots and broccoli and maybe some sliced ham, you know. But lately I have kind of let myself go in that a sense, and I would say that if we're gonna go into snacks, I like anything. Like the Jolly Ranchers gummies are probably one of my favorites, but the sour, the ones that have the
Little stuff in the middle, like
Yeah.
little like
yeah,
the
those are
quenchers
good.
or whatever they are.
And I would say Gushers is definitely another one. And the Skinny Pop, the white cheddar one. Skinny Pop, if you see this, sponsor me because
Holler at your boy.
holla at your boy because I be going through some of those things.
So the go-to drink, is it water?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I like water. Water and sweet tea.
I mean, there's nothing wrong with those at all. So in closing here, we've kind of touched on a little bit of everything, and we've kind of been all over the place. But to close down, to summarize, you've been a fighter, you've been a racer, you've been California, Oklahoma, you've raced all over the place. So you have some miles under your belt. If you had any piece of wisdom or advice or a simple quote to give to a young up-and-coming Cameron Paul that's just getting into either, you know, taekwondo, jiu-jitsu, race it to,
Yeah.
you know, whatever it is, what's the key piece of advice that you could give to a young up-and-comer?
You know, a lot of people, like, I got a message the other day asking, hey, you know, I see how you're doing all these things and you're going super forward in your life, and it seems like things are really starting to hit that next level for you. And he just asked me, how do I get the sponsors and how do I get the help? And I said, honestly, be marketable. You know, be somebody that people look up to. You know, don't, you know, just because someone's below you in this world, don't try to put them down. You know, if someone's having a bad day, try to help them out. You know, if there's a young kid that's asking you questions, even if you're at a lower level and there's someone below you, you know, treat them as if they're Kyle Larson or someone that's above you, and just, be humble. That's the biggest thing I like to express to people, is because I feel like a lot of people can get caught up in positions where they think that, man, my life's great, can't get any worse, and then, you'll find yourself with no friends and kind of, end up losing a lot of friendships over just who you're becoming, I should say.
I like it. There you have it. Cameron Paul says, be marketable, be humble. And this has been another episode of Haas Talks.
Introducing the Performance Electronics Wideband O2 sensor with Bluetooth. With just 3 wires, installation couldn't be easier. Quickly connect your smartphone to our simple app to monitor your engine's air-fuel ratio in real time without gauges. The PE Wideband O2 sensor is just one of many performance electronics products that can add brains and brawn to your next high-performance project. Find them all at pe-ltd.com.